Welcome to Mind Travel with Marie Hidary.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. How's everybody doing? I'm thrilled to have you all here. What an incredible turnout for this Mind Travel night. And I'd like to first acknowledge a couple organizations that I've collaborated with on this night. First is Saatchi Art. I just want to thank the whole team, Nicole and Rebecca at Saatchi Art, for really helping bring this to new people, bringing Mind Travel to new people. They do a tremendous job at bringing art to millions of people through the internet, quality art, incredible curation. I'm also proud to be a Saatchi artist on their site, so it's wonderful work that they do, so thank you for being part of tonight. I also want to thank the David Lynch Foundation for their collaboration here tonight. Lynn and Nina in particular, thank you for your tireless effort. Thank you. I had the great fortune to go with them recently to one of the schools that they work with. They are doing tremendous work. They bring meditation to inner city schools, to people at risk, to students at risk, and the impact is tremendous. I've seen it firsthand, and thank you all for supporting their work here by being here tonight, and I encourage you to find out more about their work and support them in the future. Thank you. I also want to thank my dear friend Amy Smart. Where's Amy? Hi, Amy. I want to thank Amy for also being a part of tonight. You are not just a literal superstar, but a dear personal superstar to me. You're a beautiful person inside and out, and thank you for being part of tonight. She'll be sharing her wisdom and her grace here with all of you tonight, so thank you, Amy. This night is particularly special to me because it brings together the deep passions that I have, all of them in one experience. First, of course, is the music that it brings. Second is the artwork. We'll be experiencing artwork on the screen as I perform. The third is my love and passion for theoretical physics, and I'll be talking briefly about that and how it influences my understanding of not only the universe, but how it impacts the music you'll be hearing tonight. And finally, it also brings together my passion for the pursuit of deeper levels of consciousness. And on that note, I want to acknowledge someone here in the audience, Denny Goodman, who's right here in front. And Denny is my meditation teacher. So I want to thank you for being here. And your work in both meditation as well as your background as a physicist allowed me deeper access kind of the way I think to it. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for that. So before I start performing, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the ideas that inform the music. In particular, we're here tonight as an exploration and as a celebration of creativity. And so my remarks will be geared around the creative process as I see it, the creative process as I experience it in my own work, both music, art, and otherwise. And so let's start here. Well, this is how most of us conceive of the creative process, that there are these haves and have-nots of creativity. John is creative, Jill is not. Mary is super creative, but Bill is not, right? And so we think of that and we use that kind of phraseology and those words when we talk about people and their roles. And so I want to put forth for your consideration that we all have limitless access, boundless access to creativity, all of us. There aren't creative people and non-creative people. We all have the power to tap in to the deepest creativity that the universe has to offer us. And so I'd like to take us on a journey to tell a story, as it were, of how I see that creativity unfolding. And it goes back about 100 years is where I'd like to start this story. It won't take 100 years to tell, but I would like to start 100 years back. And it starts with one of the most creative human ideas ever to be put forth. And that was by, in the 1920s, Werner Heisenberg, German physicist, and his colleagues conceived of this notion of the uncertainty principle in quantum physics. Now, at the subatomic level, it turns out that the entire universe is operating with complete uncertainty. And from our point of view as humans on this scale, we kind of see things in a very predictable fashion. But if we dig down on the subatomic level, it's anything but. And I'd like to explain a little bit about that because it's directly relevant to how I view creativity. When we were in 6th grade, we all remember this electron picture. In this case, it's got 3 electrons, it's a lithium atom, and these electrons are spinning around the nucleus. And that's what we taught. That's what we were taught what an electron was and what an atom was spinning around the nucleus. And so, it turns out it's completely wrong. It's completely not the case of what's actually happening. And that is the brilliance of the uncertainty principle, is that it said the electrons are not in any one place. There is essentially, on the right, you see this electronness, this electron field, that the electron is in all places around the nucleus until you measure or observe it, in which case it snaps into place and we see it as we were taught. And this idea of it being everywhere in some probabilistic fashion and then collapsing into a specific location is something that physicists call the quantum wave function. And that you see on the bottom here looks like a wave. It's got this kind of curve to it. And essentially, the more probable position of the electrons will be in the middle, and less probable positions will be at the edges. It's important to conceive of this, of course, as 3-dimensional, not just as a 2-dimensional rendering you see on the screen. And so there's kind of this electron ness around the nucleus, and the electrons are kind of everywhere in this field until observed, and the wave function collapses, and we can observe its location. And that's the idea behind uncertainty. What is uncertain? What was Heisenberg saying is uncertain? Well, what he's saying is that if we know its location, then we can't know its speed and momentum. And if we know its momentum, we can't know its location. And so that is this idea of the uncertainty principle. Well, let's now relate it to music. What does a quantum wave function relate to in music? Now, to be sure, this is metaphorical, but very informative nonetheless. What we just said is that the faster something goes, the less we can pinpoint its location. And so look on the top and you'll see a musical pattern, a rhythm, as it speeds up. And I'll be playing these types of patterns, and as they speed up, you'll be less able to pinpoint which notes they are. And just like the electron becomes kind of this fuzzy yellowness around the nucleus that you saw in the previous slide, the same will be true for the musical notes, that its identity, and in music, identity is the key of C, the key of D, the key of E. And so that identity will be blurred through motion, through movement, through momentum. And below you see this same wave function image. And there, what note comes next in that pattern has a probabilistic nature to it. And so I can play pretty much any note, some more probable than others. If I have a pattern D, C, D, F, D, C, D, F, chances are I'll play a D in the next repetition versus, say, an F sharp, D sharp, or an A sharp on the flanks of that wave function. Although it is possible that I will play it. Now, in particular, the kind of music you'll be hearing tonight is something I call real-time composition. The music I play tonight will have never been heard or played in its form that you hear tonight. To be sure, there's a language that I've developed over many years that I essentially swim in musically. These are Lego blocks of music that I connect and interconnect in different ways and find ways to glue them together and create new ones as I develop the music. But the actual piece from start to finish will be the first time it's ever been heard, kind of like the Tibetan monks building a mandala and then it gets destroyed. It exists only in that moment. Well, now let's go back to creativity. I'd like to put forth that creativity is a function of time. That if we did not have time as a dimension in which we live, there would be no creativity. Well, let's think about that a second. We know that Einstein said that the past, present, and future are all illusions, albeit stubborn ones. What he was saying, essentially, is that there really is no separation, right, between these tenses that we conceive of as rather linear. Past, present, and future kind of all can be collapsed, existing simultaneously in certain dimension. If there was no time and past, present, and future were collapsed into one, there's no opportunity for creativity. Creativity must happen through time, in time, through movement. Why? Because it delineates the change of something from this state to this state. My hand is here, I move it here. I have a canvas and it's got nothing on it, and I draw something, and then I keep drawing. It's happening through time. If there was no time, the entire thing would just be. It would just be. It would just be in existence. So time is a critical element to the creative process. But there's something else going on. As somebody in the creative world that creates music, that creates art, who here has had something called writer's block? Right? Can you relate to writer's block in whatever field you're in? You don't have to be a writer, of course. What is writer's block? It's certainly the nemesis of all creatives. Well, essentially, writer's block says, I want to create something and I can't come up with it. I'm absent of ideas. I'm empty of what to do next. And so what I find helpful is actually taking our story further back than 100 years to Plato. What Plato said was that creativity is a process of discovery. Actually, he didn't even use the word creativity because they did not have a word creativity back in his day. The notion of creativity is discovery, to unveil that which is already there. It's already there. I don't have to come up with it. I have to get out of my own way. I have to unveil it. When Plato talked about poetry, there was a making of the poetry, a discovering of the poetry, sculpture, all the art forms. Well, that has a huge sense of relief to it as someone trying to create something. So the ideas are there already. And so the way I think of it is these ideas are always below the surface, waiting to be tapped into, waiting to be unveiled. Kind of like ideas beneath the surface of an ocean that I'm able to tap into. That's hard to see, certainly if the light's not hitting the water the right way. I wouldn't even know they're there until I'm able to tap into it. Or maybe it is a field of flowers, boundless field of flowers in the mountains that I'm just ready for me to come up and pluck one. And there's my idea. And these are visuals I'm very present to when I sit down at the piano, when I conceive of something visual or musical. So how do we encapsulate this process? Mozart said, when I start writing, the notes kind of take over and write themselves. Igor Stravinsky, the great Russian composer, he said that freedom is attained through limitations. One of the greatest yogis of all, Yogi Berra, he said, and we all know this quote, when you get to a fork in the road, take it. Now, by the way, it turns out that it just meant because his house was accessible from either road. But anyway, let's just go metaphorical on this one. And essentially what it means is there's power in choice. There's power in choice. And when you choose, the next choice becomes easier. The choice after that, easier. The choice after that, easier. That's what Mozart was getting at. Let's go back to quantum physics. Why do we talk about that? What does that have to do with this? All possibilities exist. That wave function we talked about. Every creative choice is available to me. It really is. It's available to me in every moment. Then I choose, I observe it. And just like that electron that snaps and collapses its wave function, and I can pinpoint it, there's my idea. And then, in the next moment, it expands again back into an unimaginable wave function. And that is what's happening from the creative point of view. I choose, that's an observation of collapsing all the possibilities, but they were there. And now I have a choice. Again, a new possibility opens up endlessly. I choose open and close, open and close. That is what's happening. From that frame, from that point of view, it's very liberating. There's a real freedom to that. And so I put this little simplistic equation up on the screen to show kind of how that works. The creative process, creativity is truly such that should my choices go down, right, that denominator, as it approaches 1, what happens to productivity? It becomes a larger number. It increases. If I have an endless number of choices, I can't do anything. I'm stuck. Who here has been to like a Jewish deli? Seriously. You look at that menu, I just want to go home. I don't know what to I want to get all of it or none of it. It's that. But there's something to that, right? There's something to overwhelming choice. But there's power in choosing. So that's what's happening. It becomes faster and faster to create as we limit choices. New worlds open up. And I'm not just talking about music. I'm not just talking about art. I'm talking about our relationships, our children, our spouses, our partners, and our businesses. I mean, in every aspect of life, there's creative power in choice, in choosing. That takes me to deep listening. Well, how do I get out of my own way and give myself the ability to choose? I contend that first I must actually listen to the available choices, to know what the choices are, to know what is available to me. Too often we feel like the choice comes on us. But no, there's an endless, bountiful choice available that we can then choose from. But it takes deep listening. The way I think about deep listening, it's not just hearing, it's seeing, it's everything around me. And it's what's inside of me. It's being able to take everything in without judgment. Judgment is the killer of creativity. It's conditioned. Throughout the night, you'll be seeing artwork on the screen. They're all abstractions. But they're of real things. They're of the real world around us. Here's an example of one. On the left, it's a sign in Lower Manhattan that you would drive by a million times and never take a second notice. Unless, of course, you were looking for storage. On the right is the after, what I did to it in camera. No Photoshop, just using light and movement, light and movement to capture the colors, the light emanating from that, and finding another way to see it. Deep listening. What does it have to tell me? It could also be a storefront here on Ventura Boulevard. That FedEx sign is interesting if I want to send FedEx. Or can I get lost in a whole other world of dimension? Or a beautiful sunset that I could sit by and for hours and just take it all in. Is there another way to even see that beauty? So as you look at the imagery, doesn't matter what they are, but just make available to yourself this idea that there's another way to see, another way to hear, another way to look, another way to be that's available to us. In the great yogic wisdom, thousands of years old, they talked about this notion of samadhi, this idea of attainment, of self-absorption, this fully absorbed state of non-dual awareness. These are heady words. These are fantastical concepts that seem unrelatable. But what were they getting at? What is actually happening in those states of non-dual awareness? Duality of what? Well, what they say is there's our experience, right, of I am the subject, I have my own sense of self, my identity as subject, and I'm observing things. There's objects out there. The lights, people, chairs, signs, piano, these are objects. There's a subject and object relationship. And we all share that relationship with everything around us. Different frames, different relative points of view, but we all have that duality that we're experiencing in our everyday lives. And what they teach us is that there's an experience that lies beyond that, where the subject and object relationship can become absorbed, as they say, can collapse. That is a very profound state. What happens in that state? What's available in that state is this emptiness, this nothingness, yet coming from a place of everything and nothing together. It's very powerful. And a state that I'm not even aware in the old frame of subject that is actually what's happening. In that state, pure creation can happen. Pure creation can happen. All possibilities exist, available to me right there. It's a very powerful state, something that I aspire to, and when I sit at the piano, it's like that's where I try to get to. But it's available to all of us. And of course, in the yoga tradition, through meditation, very powerful way to achieve that. And so, I'd like to finish up these remarks with the following image. As I sit down at the piano and play the first note, I'd like you to envision the placing of a leaf into the river. Why a river? Well, a river seems to have this very powerful metaphor of life, of past, present, and future. The flow of time. We say that. The arrow of time, the movement of time. The river is a very powerful metaphor for how we experience life. But we also said that Einstein believed that there was no past, present, and future. They were all illusions. That there's no separation between them. But that certainly doesn't feel right to me. And every day I certainly feel time passing. There's a flow that's happening. So how am I supposed to think about that? Well, a wonderful French philosopher, Merleau-Ponty, he said that perhaps it's because the placing of the leaf into the river acts as observer to time, to the flow of that river. Should there be no leaf, perhaps there would not be time as we conceive it. And we are that leaf. We are that leaf. So the opportunity I put forth here tonight is we start as that leaf. Where do we get to? Can we collapse that wave function? Right? Back to Heisenberg, and what he said was, it's through observation that our reality exists. Like, soak that one in. It's through observation that the wave function collapses and our reality emerges. So if that is the case, and we collapse that observation, then what is available? And that is where I'd like to leave you as we dive into the music. I'm going to play straight through. It'll be about 30 minutes or so. Enjoy the visuals. For many people, by the way, they respond more to the music. Feel free to close your eyes. Some people like the visuals as an access point. Feel free to watch it. Feel free to go back and forth. There's no way to experience this. You experience this in your own way. And so with that, let's dive in, and I'll see you on the other side.